Every NBA team is now approaching the 15 games played mark, which means there's still obviously a lot of basketball left to be played, but it also means that we've seen enough early action to start drawing some conclusions and taking note of things that may or may not be a coincidence. We come into every season with a general idea of who the league's biggest stars are and what we should expect from them production-wise, so when they fail to hit those marks, they inevitably disappoint, and that's exactly what we're here to discuss today. In this video, we're going to be discussing the 5 star players disappointing everybody so far this season, failing to come close to meeting the expectations placed on them. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first star player that has been disappointing everybody so far this season is Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. To start here, I need to clear something up real quick. Joel Embiid has been under fire from fans in the media for weeks now, and while he absolutely does belong on this list today, I think a lot of people's supposed anger towards him is a bit misguided. Embiid is dealing with legitimate swelling in his knee that he tore the meniscus of last season, and is nowhere near 100% healthy. He has missed all but 3 games so far this year, and a lot of people seem to be under the impression that he's just being lazy and sitting out games because he doesn't want to play, which could not be further from the truth. Now with all of that being said though, it is still very disappointing that things have gone down the way that they have, hence the subject of today's video and his inclusion here. In the 3 games that Embiid has suited up for, he has looked like a shell of his former self, clearly not moving up and down the floor as fluidly as we're used to seeing from him. His shooting touch was evading him completely, as he has scored just 13 points, then 20 points, then 11 points on poor shooting splits, and in the games that he's missed, the Sixers have looked like a train wreck too. The team is now at the bottom of the standings, sitting at 2-11, and have already dug themselves a deep hole, with this absolutely contributing to it. Speaking of which, the next star player disappointing everyone so far this season is Paul George of the Philadelphia 76ers. The last thing I want to do is pile on the Sixers, but there's no doubt that George also belongs on this list today. Paul George was brought to Philadelphia for the purpose of being able to aid in the team's ability to compete on a regular basis, while taking some of the pressure off of Joel Embiid to have to carry the group. Historically, the Sixers' on-off numbers have shown that the team absolutely dominates when Embiid is on the court, and then completely fall apart when he is off the court, and with Embiid's knee being a known issue in the offseason, the goal was to have Paul George be able to lead the way as a two-way all-star that can keep the team afloat even in the time that Embiid misses. Well, so far that has not been what has happened at all, as the Sixers have a record of 2-11 as I mentioned before, and George himself has played pretty poorly to start this Sixers tenure. George is averaging just 16 points per game, shooting the ball 39% from the field and 31% from 3. His overall shot selection and shot quality have been pretty poor, settling for a ton of ill-timed, tightly contested jumpers, and he's also missed 6 games of his own because of a knee injury that he suffered in preseason. This was supposed to be the start of a new era for the Sixers this year, but instead, they're off to as bleak of a start as it gets. The next star player disappointing everyone so far this season is Tyrese Haliburton of the Indiana Pacers. Haliburton's last year has been a complete roller coaster, with his campaign last year having stretches where he looked like the best point guard in the NBA. It also featured some stretches where he could not hit the side of a barn. He ended up leading the NBA in assists, though, and then in the playoffs that roller coaster rode on all the way to the conference finals. He even got selected to be a part of Team USA at the Olympics this summer, signifying how highly regarded he was after last season. This year, though, Haliburton is off to a pretty rough start all around. His scoring has taken a sizable dip down to just 16 points per game, including a game against the Knicks where he did not score a single point. He's shooting the ball just 39% from the field and 29% from 3, which is well below where we're used to seeing his efficiency. His assist numbers are slightly down on the season, and the Pacers have a losing record of 6-7 so far. The most incriminating metric of all, though, comes with his impact on the court versus how the team performs with him on the bench, as the Pacers get get outscored by 1.9 points per 100 possessions with Haliburton on the floor, but actually outscore their opponents by 5.1 points per 100 possessions with him on the bench, making them 7 points better without him so far this year, and that's just not something that should be true at all from a team's best player. For the Pacers to turn things around, they need him to get back to being the hyper-efficient, elite playmaker that he's been over the last few years, because there's just too much competition elsewhere for them to succeed consistently without it. The next star player disappointing everyone so far this season is Zion Williamson of the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion Williamson is starting to get to a point where people need to be more realistic about what his ceiling as a talent really is. When he was drafted, the world was his oyster, with upside to the moon, after electrifying the college game at Duke and being selected #1 overall in 2019. Since then, his NBA career has been a mixed bag of flashes of greatness, injury woes, and inconsistency, and all of that is still on display in year 6 for him. Zion's had 3 pretty good games this year, 3 pretty bad games this year, and has missed the rest of the team's games due to injury. Even in the 3 games where he shot the ball well, he struggled mightily on defense for the most part, which has, to a degree, negated the good that he's done, and overall he's not dominating the paint as efficiently as he has in years past either, so his impact on winning games has been minimal. The team lost back-to-back games earlier to the Warriors, who were missing Steph Curry in both games, with Zion on the court out there, which was a pretty tough look for the former #1 pick, and with the Pelicans starting their year 4-10 record-wise, it's getting harder and harder to buy into Zion being someone that the team can legitimately build around. He's still a fringe all-star level talent, but we need to recognize that he won't be the superstar that he was drafted to be. And finally, the last star player disappointing everyone so far this year is Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat. Butler has not been one to dominate the regular season in a while, but with him now being 35 years old, it's getting harder to simply bank on him being able to turn it on whenever he wants, like he's done during the Heat's couple of trips to the NBA Finals with him at the helm. The Heat had an incredibly quiet offseason after a season last year where they finished in the play-in tournament yet again, so not a whole lot is different about this group, besides the fact that they now have an even worse version of Butler at the helm. Jimmy is averaging just 16 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds per game so far, playing more passive than ever, and the Heat aren't talented enough to just coast to that degree. They're below 500 at 6-7 to start the year, so just like last year, it's looking like they could potentially be headed to another trip to the play-in tournament, and at some point, the Heat can't keep finding themselves doing the same thing over and over again. Butler and Heat president Pat Riley butted heads a little bit in the offseason as well, so if things really start to head south, Butler himself could be found on the trade block as the trade deadline approaches. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below which stars have disappointed you the most so far. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.